Moneymakers, I'm Kalila Reynolds and welcome to another episode of Taking Stock Live. This is the show where we bring you all the latest business news and how it will affect you and your money. So the 2024 Paris Olympic Games get started this week. There is so much excitement here in Jamaica. You know, we live for the Olympics. That's glory that comes on the track and on the field for our distinguished athletes. And guess what? With billions of dollars projected to be made from its staging, is this a golden moment to invest in the future of sports? We're going to be discussing that on tonight's show. What are the opportunities for you to make some money, not betting necessarily, but for you to make some money by investing in sports? But first, let me know in the comments and in the chat where you're joining us from tonight, what part of Jamaica, what part of the world. And of course, up next is you take a look at what's coming up in tonight's show, followed by what's hot in business. And then come on, let's get this money.
On this episode of Taking Stock, the global sports market is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Where does the money come from and what investment opportunities exist for the everyday fan? We take a look at how money flows in the sports world. Athlete brand manager Tanya Perkins joins us live to discuss. And the analyst weighs in on the latest market developments. No more free toll access from Clarendon to Manchester. TransJamaica Highway to operate the new Phase 1C of highway. Here's what's hot, brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart. Starting next month, commuters will begin paying a toll to use the Clarendon to Manchester leg of Highway 2000. After 2 years of negotiations, TransJamaica Highway has reached an agreement with the National Road Operating and Construction Company to operate the road. TJH is offering $20.3 million for the permission to operate and maintain the highway. The company already operates the Portmore leg and the Caymanas to Sandy Bay and Sandy Bay to Mapen legs. Motorists had been using the toll for free since last September when it officially opened. The government is opening up a $1 billion line of credit to chicken farmers to help prevent a chicken meat shortage following the devastation of Hurricane Beryl. A line of credit is a revolving loan that allows customers to access money as they need it up to a certain limit. Prime Minister Andrew Holness explained that the Development Bank of Jamaica will make the funds available to the broiler companies and or approved farmers at an interest rate of 7.5%. It is a secured loan with an 8-year repayment period. The maximum amount that can be accessed is 90% of the project cost. Florida-based IT company Simply Secure says it plans to acquire an even larger stake in T-Tech soon. Simply Secure recently purchased 52 million T-Tech shares, which represents a 49% stake in the company. The deal reportedly cost over 114 million Jamaican dollars. The company also signaled that once they've acquired 50% or more of T-Tech's shares, it will extend an offer to all remaining T-Tech shareholders to purchase their shares. Microsoft says over 8.5 million devices were affected by Friday's outage. According to cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike, the outage was caused by a defect in an update to its cybersecurity defense software for Windows hosts. This caused massive disruptions for everything connected to a Microsoft computer, including banks, airlines, hospitals, and governments. Microsoft said it released a recovery tool over the weekend to help repair Windows machines hit by the glitch. However, experts warned that it could take weeks for global tech infrastructure to fully recover.
So guys, there's a new IPO out. R.A. Williams is a pharmaceutical distribution company and they're looking to raise 400 million Jamaican dollars. If you've always wanted to invest in an IPO but you weren't sure what to look for, take my Investing for Beginners Masterclass. Let's get this money. Welcome back, everybody, to Taking Stock. Well, do you think you need to be Usain Bolt to make any money in sports? Not necessarily, but being Bolt doesn't hurt either. So tonight we're going to explore the vast world of sports business and sports investment, how athletes and fans of all levels can make money through sports. So joining us is athlete and brand manager Tanya Perkins, who's going to break down the returns and the risks. Welcome back, Tanya.
Hi, Kalila. Thanks for having me back.
The last time we had you was the World Cup, and it was a very vibrant and interesting discussion. And this time, Jamaicans are tuned in, I want to say even more intensely than the World Cup, because Jamaica is in it.
This is our thing. We do better at track and field, so we get more excited about it.
Absolutely, to see our men and women on the track and on the field, all the glory, and on the podium. Ooh, chills halfway through with your pot cover. So before we get started, though, give us a little bit of background about you for those who are new, who haven't experienced you before, Tanya.
All right, where do I start? The famous question, how did I get started in sports? I am a failed athlete, actually. We're talking about the Olympics. I used to run the 400 meter. I wasn't very good at it. My coach suggested that I change to the 400 meter hurdles, and I stopped at university level. But it granted me scholarships at the university level. I was able to do my master's on the scholarship, so I'm grateful for that. But I've been 20 years in sports media. I joined in 2005 with the SportsMax team as a young marketer and moved all the way up to vice president marketing with the company. I spent 14 years there. And so it's been 20 years in the sports business. I've worked the gamut. You know, I've been a columnist at the Gleaner. I've been a sports author. I've written 2 sports books. I know in my latest chapter, I would say a huge bulk of my time is taken up managing athletes. And I have 2 athletes that are currently on the team for Jamaica at the Olympics, which is Jadon Hibbert, who participates in the triple jump, and Akira Nugent, who has the national record. She did very well at the national championships in the 100 meter hurdles for women. So we're expecting big things in Paris.
All right. Well, congratulations on representing your Olympic athletes, Tanya. I know that's a big deal.
Thank you. Speaking of big deal, Jadon was just signed to KFC, so that's also big money.
And that's what we're going to talk about. All right. So $4.4 billion are projected to be spent on the Paris Olympics. Where does all this money come from?
In terms of the money spent, or?
Yeah, the money invested in the whole thing.
Well, it comes from many different places. Let's start out with who actually owns the rights. So the rights for the Olympic Games belongs to the IOC. And how do they make money? They make money through 2 ways. Largely, primarily through the broadcast rights that they sell to different media companies, and also through sponsorships. So they have some very lucrative sponsorship brands on board. Airbnb, Alibaba, Visa, Deloitte, Samsung, Coca-Cola, just to name a few. Those are big money sponsorships. When you talk about TV broadcast rights, one of the biggest one is NBC Sports. They gave a chunk of $7.7 billion to the IOC for the Olympic rights. And that goes all the way to 2032. And there's just one media house. So that's how they make their money. In terms of who pays for the games to happen, the host country also forks out a significant chunk because they're putting together everything that happens throughout the games. They're hosting all the countries. They have all the stadia ready, the swimming pool, the football fields, all that investment and infrastructure that goes into the Olympics, just like the World Cup, it comes from the host country. So a lot of people are investing heavily in making the product happen.
Who invests in the athletes? Is it just governments, or are there private investors that push for athletes to do well as well? And what return do they get, if so?
I think maybe many of our athletes would laugh at the idea that it's government investment, but largely it's privately funded, and it's funded through their track and field clubs. It's funded through the agents in terms of the athlete's career overall. When you think about the Olympics, it's really not a money-making venture for the athlete per se, but it is the biggest marketing tool for the track and field athletes. Now, let me just break that down. For the first time, persons who win at the Olympics will actually collect the prize money. This is the first time in the history of the games that this will happen. So the winner will go away with $50,000. Outside of that, if you're second, if you're third, you do not make anything at the Olympics. And so that's always been a long-standing issue. But in terms of going to the games itself, that is funded by the National Olympic Association. Of course, the athletes are a part of that camp, so that's taken care of. But they are funded throughout the year by their athletic contracts, which typically they have through ASICS and Nike and Adidas or Puma. Many of our athletes are sponsored by either Nike, Adidas, or Puma, and that's the biggest and most important part of their athletic career, to get that shoe contract.
So the return primarily is the marketing that the sponsors gain from investing in the athletes. There's no financial return per se, except additional exposure, which potentially would result in more people buying your product.
Absolutely. So here's how the matrix works. So what you want to do is you want to get to the Olympics and you want to increase your brand visibility. Now, you want to do that through performing very well, because of course that's going to bring you returns in terms of sponsor interest. So you leave now and you have the opportunity to pick up on sponsorships. Also, you're going to get a more lucrative shoe contract. You're able to renegotiate that contract, or you're able to pick up your contract for the first time. So you have that lucrative shoe contract, which is really your bread and butter. You also want to perform well because you want to be top 10 in the world. What that means is your agent is then able to shop you into meets throughout the year. These are Grand Prix meets, these are Diamond League meets. When you see athletes running on the circuit, they're picking up money for running and participating. They get appearance fees. Now, if you are top 5 in the world, you are gonna likely to get an appearance fee to go to an event. If you're not, it's gonna be very difficult for you to get into those meets. So you're really racing your way into the top 10 in the world. You're grabbing a lane into one of those Grand Prix or Diamond League meets, and you're looking for bonus payouts in case you medal, because a lot of sponsors also pay bonuses. And the shoe contract companies that we spoke about, the Adidas, the Pumas, the Nikes of this world, they're all going to pay out lucrative bonus deals to the athletes for their performances.
When you say lucrative, what type of numbers are we talking about?
Kalilo, I'd probably have to kill you to tell you. The reality is that that's probably the most shrouded thing in track and field. The numbers are not public. It's not like American sports. But I can tell you from my experience that it varies significantly. You're looking anywhere between millions of dollars being made by an athlete per year, or as little as 10,000, funny enough, being made by an athlete per year through an athletic contract. So it varies significantly across the board. So you will have your professional athletes, and then you have your elite athletes, and that elite pool is banking significantly. The others at the professional level, maybe not so much.
How much money does it take to invest in an athlete? Like if I wanted to adopt an athlete and invest in their development, we're talking food, we're talking coaching, we're talking everything it takes to get to the Olympics and do well. Like what type of numbers
are we looking at?
Right.
I don't have those specific numbers, but it's a significant number, which is why it's so expensive to run a track and field club. But then also at the same time, I must tell you that track and field is not the most expensive sport. So you need to have a track, obviously, that you're training on. There is the gym. There's the nutrition aspect of it. But at the end of the day, that is largely done by the track and field clubs, and it's largely covered by the athletes and their athletic contracts that they have with the shoe companies.
Okay, I was just going to ask you, if the track and field clubs are the ones making that investment, how do they make their money back?
It's a combination. So that investment largely starts with the athletic contract. So here's how it works. I'm a young athlete. I'm likely to do well in the sport. I'm probably going to be approached by an agent. He's going to be representing a Nike, a Puma, or an Adidas. He will come to me with an offer on the table. I'm likely, if I'm a good athlete, if I'm running pretty well, if they expect me to do well on the circuit and to medal at the Olympics, I'm likely to get significant monetary offers from these shoe companies. I'm going to choose the one that I think works best for me. There will be some tranches of payouts depending on how well I do. So if I go below a certain threshold in terms of running, if I dip sub 11, if I go sub 10, you may have a significant payout. If I medal, there's a bit bonus that I can pull down on. And that's pretty much how it works. Those contracts then go directly to the athlete through their agents. And then the agents and athletes will pay the coaches. So the coaches then get paid, whether that's on a weekly or a monthly basis. And that fuels the athletic journey. So that's pretty much how it works in the business.
You know, there is a lot of, I've noticed something, Tanya. The ability to get paid in track and field, to get those lucrative marketing contracts, does not only depend on an athlete's performance on the track. it also depends a lot on the way the athlete is able to brand themselves, the way the athlete is able to stand out. To what extent do you agree with that, Tanya, as a marketer yourself?
All right. So the reality is that the single most important thing you must do in the sport is that you have to perform well. It's the reality of the sport, because that's what will allow you to maintain that contract that we spoke about. So when you start your career, you get this contract. That figure is reduced, Kalila, if you don't run as fast as is expected. Now that figure goes up exponentially if you are doing well in the sport. So if you're running well, if you have big social media numbers, if you have massive visibility, if you become a household name, if you have big personality, you're gonna bank. Sports is entertainment, and it's a business where if you invest in your brand and in the product, you're gonna get the returns. So what you'll find is that there are many people who are running track and field. There are many people in a swimming pool. There are many people who are diving. There are many people who are doing judo, whatever the sport is. But what really separates people is the big personality, the huge athletic performance. This is now when you're in that elite athlete territory. So when you think about something like the NBA, look at LeBron James. He's an elite athlete. He's going to bank much more. Steph Curry is going to get much more lucrative deals than the fifth man or the sixth man on a basketball team. It's the same thing in track and field. If you're top 5 in the world, if you have a big personality, if you're consistent, if you medal, you're likely to pick up more money through endorsements and sponsorship.
So when you think about Usain Bolt, he's top athlete, but also he differentiates himself with the lightning bolt pose, his personality. You think about Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce with her signature hair, all the wigs that she takes to the games and so on.
Absolutely. So even my job as an athlete manager, that's one of the things that I look at. And that's the reason why I would have signed an athlete like a Jaden Hibbert, because he has a big personality. When I think about it, and even him being picked up by KFC as the first track and field brand ambassador in Jamaica to represent KFC, which is a huge global brand, that's testament to the personality that he has. Because Kalila, this is not a sprinter. This is a field event athlete. So your personality will sell. It will take you places. And I think Bolt is the epitome of that. He epitomized big personality, showmanship. When the lights come on, he comes alive. And I think that's what brands are looking for.
Do you think Bolt should be bigger than he is today? Financial? Well, I don't know what his finances are like, but in terms of global brand deals, should he be bigger?
Again, the secret is shorted in track and field. I think Bolt is pretty big, Kalilo. Bolt has made significant monies. He's had a number of deals. I think if you pay attention to his social media, you will see that he very quietly amasses a lot of brand deals, a lot of advertising. And I don't know what the figures look like, but I think he's done pretty good for himself over the years. I think he has.
What about an athlete like a Shelly-Ann? Because we all know the women get the shorter end of the stick when it comes to sports, any sport.
Well, for Shelly, she would have had some sponsorship throughout the years. If you look at it, even in Jamaica, her sponsorship with Digicel and Grace Kennedy started at the start of her career and it's still going. Shelly has had longevity throughout the sport. I know that recently she was picked up by the watch company Hublot.
Right, I saw that, yes.
Right, so that's also pretty good. No, we don't know what those numbers look like, but I think she's also done pretty well for herself. And of course, her shoe contract with Nike, she's had those contracts with Nike for, it dates back to, I believe, 2008, if I'm correct. So she would have amassed enough as well throughout her career. And you know, Kalila, that when you're in sports, to me, it doesn't matter what sport you're doing. You're investing in the rest of your life. So any monies you make, that goes into real estate, it goes into your investments. You want to make sure that you are making that money work for you, even while you're participating in sports.
I have a question from Sean who wants to know, do athletes just practice every day, or do they have to go out and get a job to support themselves, or is it all on the person investing in them?
Very interesting question, Sean. All right, so here's the reality. There's no one size fits all in track and field. The reality is most athletes don't have a day job. The rigors, the number of training that you do, some will train twice a day. It depends on the time of year and the background training. You also have to travel to participate in meets. It's not possible for you to have a 9 to 5. And so even what you find is that funding becomes very important to some of those athletes who are not on the receiving end of these huge, lucrative athletic contracts that we spoke about. But it's not possible for many of them to have a 9 to 5.
But what about the off season then? Because you have your training
There's
leading up to.
there's no such thing as an off season track and field. The reality is they're gonna run. So when they get to the Olympics in August, they're gonna be and July, they're gonna be running at the Olympics. Right after they're done with that, they're gonna go onto the Diamond League circuit. You're now gonna pick up races right throughout until the end of September. You'll find that track and field meets are happening. And then they get like a 2-week break, maybe not so much, and they're back into background training in October to prepare for the next track and field season. It really is year round. It's brutal. It's hard on the athletes. And that's why the support, the encouragement is so important, because it's a 24/7, 365.
You also know a lot about sports media, having worked at Sportsmax, like you said, for 15 years, participated in those meetings where you all bought rights for all kind of stuff. How lucrative is that side of it?
That's the most lucrative side. It is, the broadcast rights is probably the most lucrative side for, let's say, the IOC. It's the same for the World Cup. FIFA would make significant monies from broadcast rights. In terms of the media houses, it's going to be dependent on their ability to sell advertising. But when you think about it, so this year, if you talk to any brands, most of the top brands, their budgets would have gone towards something like the Olympics. In 2026, it's going to go towards the World Cup. They know that this is a huge global audience. 3 billion people are going to tune in to the Olympics. So when we start on Friday until August 11, everything media-wise is going to be surrounding the Olympics game. It's the perfect time for ICE to go on a product. They are aware of that. And so they will spend big bucks on that broadcast rights and in terms of the advertising. So that's where most of the money is made.
But I know those broadcast rights are very, very expensive. Is it profitable to invest in that in Jamaica? Like, do the platforms make back their money?
I think they do. I mean, you can have a conversation with the likes of Nicholas Matthews at Sportsmax. I mean, they own the rights to the Olympics throughout the Caribbean. And it will be lucrative because you're looking at multiple markets throughout the region. For Jamaica, you're going to pick up the biggest chunk of that payout because of the fact that we do best at it. So you'll find that we'll bring the biggest audiences. In terms of selling as well, you sell based on the population size, Jamaica being one of the largest of the Caribbean territories. So that's where you're going to pick up a significant chunk of what you've spent on those broadcast rights, because now you're unselling those rights to other media houses. So just to give an idea, Sportsmax is now going to unsell those rights in Jamaica to a TVJ. TVJ would be able to bring it to over 90% of the population, which is a stipulation of the IOC. They have to ensure that it doesn't sit within a cable channel, it sits within a free-to-air channel where everybody is able to watch the Olympics and they're able to watch it free. So those are important aspects. And of course, they're doing this right across the region. So they're looking for deals in Trinidad, Barbados. They're going to, all the rest of the Caribbean to shop those rights. It's a lucrative business. That's where the revenues come in.
What about team sports? Do you represent any athletes in team sports like, say, football?
Absolutely, I do. Jamaica's captain and vice captain for the Reggae Boys, as examples.
So you're going straight for the top, captain and vice captain.
They're going to be picked every time, Kalila. Absolutely. It's important because that's also in team sports, you want to make sure that the athletes that you choose, I mean, not to give away all my trade secrets, but you want to ensure that they're actually a part of the play. That's important because then you have more opportunities to build a brand. Then that's what sponsors need as well. And they want to know that once they get onto that pitch, that they're going to have visibility for their brands. They're able to do messaging and communications around them, that once they're part of their advertising campaign, their social media campaign, the digital ads, the billboards, that they're recognizable faces. So yes, I'm going for the captain and the vice captain.
Mm-hmm. But I know in other countries, like owning a team, owning a sports team is a big thing. Teams are, and even players, traded, bought and sold, quote unquote.
Yes.
The money part is a big part of it.
Yes, it's important. I mean, if you're talking about sports teams, that's where the money is made. That's massive. When you think about a brand like Manchester United, for example, and by the way, that's a company that people can buy into. They make significant sums from jersey sales. You want to have the world's top athletes playing on your team because you see the returns that happens in terms of merchandising and jersey sales and in terms of ticket sales. A big example of that recently was Messi joining Inter Miami. Before then, Inter Miami was a team that was struggling in the MLS. Messi gets there and it becomes a circus. Tickets are sold out for every fixture that Inter Miami is a part of. Everybody's benefiting along the chain. Apple TV subscriptions gone through the roof. And jersey sales, those go off the shelf for Adidas immediately. They're sold out in record time. So it's a huge investment to get the right players in. And once you do, that team is banking heavily in terms of merchandising and ticket sales. And in terms of course, once they get in there, when you go to one of these matches, you realize that people are buying the jerseys on the spot. And of course, food. So it's a huge investment. Yes, but the returns are there definitely for the sports team.
I remember some months ago, I saw an article in one of the papers about a possible football IPO. So getting one or a few of Jamaica's Premier League football teams to actually list on the stock exchange. Do you think that would be a good idea?
I'm not sure if we're there yet. I think that football is still sort of semi-professional in Jamaica. I think there are still huge areas for development. We need to have more investment actually in the infrastructure in Jamaica. We don't have a football stadium, Kalila. We don't have the right football fields. I think that we're still far away from that, and we are still in the, I would say, embryonic developmental stages with what we're doing with our football. And so my suggestion would be that we continue to grow. But in terms of commercial viability, I'm not sure we're completely there yet. We're certainly not at the level that of the leagues that we just discussed. We're certainly not at the level of the MLS. We're not at the level of an English Premier League. I do think that the work that the PSJL and Chris Williams and team has done has been yeoman's work. It has been great in terms of being able to get sponsorships for each of those clubs, in terms of being able to get record attendance at the matches. I mean, I was at the finals and it was an electrifying atmosphere. And certainly much more fans were coming through than we get for the Reggae Boys at the national level. So I think that's testament to the hard work that they are doing, but I think there's more work to be done. Chris would better be able to share some of those numbers, but from where I stand and what I've seen, I'm not quite sure we're there yet.
Yeah, the article actually did quote Chris as being the one who made that proposal. Let me take a few questions from the audience before we wrap, Tanya. So we have, let me see, who do we have here? Nano Sense is all up in your business. He wants to know, how much commission do you charge an athlete?
I actually never make figures public.
Okay. Lanesra wants to know, have you approached Brianna Liston to represent her when she becomes pro?
I haven't. I don't typically approach athletes, they approach me.
Ashton wants to know, what is the average range of income over an athlete's active years, say 10 years?
It varies. It depends on the athlete. So like I mentioned before, in any sport, this is not just track and field. What you find is depending on the athlete, whether they're an elite athlete, it depends on which country they're in. I'm going to use an example. If you look at the Sha'Carri Richards, you would have seen that she has a number of deals, and almost every day if you watch her social media, she has a new sponsor. And that's because, of course, she's in the US market. It's a hugely lucrative market, and there are lots more opportunities that will be available to her because she's doing well now. So I think there's so many things that come at play. What country you reside in, who you represent, how well do you perform, what kind of personality do you have? Are you engaging? Do you have a huge social media following? Those are some of the things. Are you risky or not risky? Are you safe? That's important for brands as well. So I think there's so many things that go into how much the athlete actually is able to earn, there is no one size fits all.
Next question comes from KNB on Instagram, who wants to know, why are the contracts in track and field such a secret in comparison with other sports?
Is this in comparison with other sports? I'm not so sure, but I will say, I think the reason it is so secretive is the same reason that your salary at the place that you work is so secretive. Maybe they can pay you less if you don't know what the other person is earning. Let me put it like that.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to the games when they get started on Friday. We'll all be tuned in. As a manager, you're in Jamaica. I thought you would be in Paris, no? How that work?
No, I'm actually, well, a part of what I do is, and see, this is how others are benefiting along the chain as well. So I work alongside Team Jamaica to make sure that we're getting out the content for the fans and everybody who follows Team Jamaica on social media. We do have sponsors on board, so want to make sure that we cover everything that is being done. So I'm going to be working right throughout. Also, in terms of the athletes that I'm working with, we've already, put together our brand plan because we intend to have significant visibility throughout the games. So we're going to engage with fans and build on the brands and ensure that when the Olympics is done, we're able to cash in even more because we'll have higher social media numbers. And also, I'll be a part of the broadcast team for CVM's coverage. So I have a number of things that are happening here that makes it, I think, more useful for me to actually be in Jamaica during the Olympics.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Tanya. We look forward to everything.
Thanks, Kalilo. Thank you.
And to our viewers, it's now time for our poll question of the day. What are your views on investing in sports, especially after you just heard that conversation with Tanya? A, it could be a great way to diversify my portfolio. B, which would be, I guess that would be considered an alternative investment. B, unfamiliar with various investment opportunities. C, not a good use of my money. D, other. Leave a comment. What are your views on investing in sports? A, it could be a great way to diversify my portfolio. B, you're unfamiliar with various investment opportunities. C, not a good use of my money. Or D, other. Leave a comment. Let us know. You can take that poll right here on YouTube, over on the community tab, or over on the app formerly known as Twitter, now known as X. Or you can just leave a comment in the chat as well. So have you guys had a chance just yet to watch our interview with the CEO of VM Investments, Rez Burchinson? If not, here's a look. VMIL has completed 100% acquisition of Republic Funds Barbados. What do they do? Is it an investment firm as well?
Okay, so simply put, Republic Funds is let's call it the manager of 3 mutual funds in Barbados. One in the bond space, one in the equity space, one in the real estate space. So for example, anybody who wants an exposure to Barbados bonds, Barbados equities, Barbados real estate, is encouraged to invest in those portfolios.
All right, guys, remember to hit that like button. Up next, we've got your market recap, and the analysts are standing by.
The JC Combined Index lost over 7,000 points last week, or 2%. 121 stocks traded across the main and junior markets for the week, ending Friday, July 19, 2024. 38 made gains, 68 lost value, and 15 stayed the same. 176 million shares changed hands on the Jamaican dollar market, valued at $822 million. Dollar was the week's most traded stock. It gained 17 cents to open the week at $2.38. TransJamaica traded at the second highest. The stock's price has remained unchanged at $3.08. And Wigton rounded out last week's most traded with 6 million shares changing hands. The stock lost a cent to close the week at $1.05. Sterling Investments USD was the market's biggest gain, up almost 30% to close the week at 2 cents US. Sagicor Select Funds, Manufacturing and Distribution was the week's second biggest gain, up 27%. And the JMMB 8.5% USD was up 25% to close the week at $1.50 US. On the losing side now, 138 Student Living Variable Preference was the week's biggest loser. The stock lost 35% to open Monday at $128.99. Medical Disposables and Supplies was down 30%, and MFS Capital Partners lost 13% to close the week at 83 cents. Over on the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange, the composite index lost 18 points or almost 2% last week. Massey was the most traded stock. The stock lost 17 cents to open Monday at $3.66 TT. Point Lisa's Industrial Port Development was the biggest gain of the week. The stock was up 6%, starting the week at $3.28 TT. Over in the US, the Dow Jones was mostly flat last week, while the S&P 500 fell 2% and the Nasdaq lost 4%. Over at the pumps, gas prices were down $1.17 last week. Regular diesel prices lost $1.08 and low sulfur diesel dipped $1.19. In foreign exchange, it took an average $156.99 Jamaican to purchase $1 last Friday. That's 63 cents less than the week before. Meanwhile, it took an average $123.49 Jamaican to purchase $1 Canadian. One British pound cost on average $201.66 Jamaican. And you could buy €1 for $174.18 Jamaican on average. Finally, on the crypto markets, Bitcoin prices were up 5% over the past 5 days, trading at $67,295 US on Monday. Ethereum prices rose 3%. Trading at $3,477 US on Monday.
Are you ready to step up social media marketing for your business? Get ready for the Summer Social Splash. Be one of the first 10 companies to sign up and get 60% off our influencer promotion package featuring yours truly. I'll come to your business and highlight your product or service to over 300,000 followers on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. But only 10 spots are available and it's first come, first serve. So don't wait too long to book this special offer. It's 60% off for the summer. Contact business at moneymediaja.com. Let's get this money.
Disclaimer: this is not intended as financial advice. Please consult a licensed financial advisor before making investment decisions.
Welcome back. Let me shout out our viewers. I forgot earlier to see who was on and where you guys are joining us from. So we've got Ashton in Portmore, Antoinette, greetings from Arizona. Hot bad, she says. Monsoon is just teasing us. Kingston here, hot is insanely hot right now. I think my skin is not even cooperating. How about we call prickle heat? I don't know if you call it that here in Jamaica. That's what you call it in Belize when your skin gets kind of bumpy because of the heat. Prickle heat. Captain Parky is present, joining us from Negril Aerodrome. Deshaun is also in Negril. Nano Sense is far, far away. Dalton is in the Cayman Islands. Dr. Lithium is outside. Christine is in Kingston 19. Kamoy is in New York City. We got Rupi in Washington Gardens, Kingston. Young Boy, is this the rapper? Young Boy Never Broke Again. Joining us from Kingston, Jamaica. Chris in Panama City, Panama. Kamoy in Greater Portmore. James is in Mobay. Humble is in Negril. We got Jermaine in China. And I see a couple people asking about the R.A. Williams IPO, if it's still open. Last I heard, it is indeed still open. I haven't heard that it has closed. You know, it would have opened last week, Wednesday. And you may be curious, well, why is this IPO still open after almost a week? And, well, a week. Today would be a week, 7 days. And it's a junior market listing, which usually closes pretty quickly, a day or two. Well, there are different reasons that could have caused this IPO to remain open a little bit longer than I would say necessary. One of the reasons that I heard is that some of the key partners for the R.A. Williams IPO, you know, the ones who get the reserve pool, that line item that says key partners, there are a couple who didn't have a JCSD account, a JCSD number. And so they had to keep it open, or they may have had, I'm speculating here, this is what I heard, may have had to keep it open for those key partners to participate. And they already have a whole big reserve pool. So if you close it early, I guess it could go to the general public. But you're doing an IPO this big. You have people who've been with you from day one, who have helped you out. You would want your key partners, including some of your employees, because employees are on the reserve list as well. You want to make sure that they're sorted out. Now, should this have been sorted out long before the IPO opened? Yes, but it is what it is at this point. I am speculating here. I don't know this for a fact, but based on what I heard and who I heard it from, I believe this could be a reason that the R.A. Williams IPO is actually still open when usually they would have closed already. All right, so let's introduce our analyst panel for this evening. We've got David Rose, business writer at the Jamaica Observer, joining us once again. And we've got a fresh new face from JMMB joining us, Camille Stair, who is the senior corporate manager at JMMB Fund Managers. Welcome back, David, and welcome for the first time, Camille.
Hi, Kalila.
Hello, thank you.
Great to have you, Camille. You're all dolled up, man. Looking good for the show. I appreciate the effort. Come through, Glam Squad.
Look here, no man, I have to.
Camille's a compound big show. I have to
Here, no.
Well, we're going to start with you this evening, Camille. So we're talking about retirement planning in the context of a lot that's been going on in Jamaica's economy. We've had this discussion here on this show about the country's declining birth rate and the economic development. How do these things relate? What does that have to do with retirement planning?
All right, so off the bat, one of the things that we would have seen as it relates to retirement planning and within the context of Latin America and the Caribbean is that we have, and the data would show coming out of the United Nations, OECD, that we have an aging population. And the data in 2020 would have indicated that 1 in every 10 persons would be at age 60 or over. And that is expected to double by 2050. So when you're looking in terms of sustainability of pension systems, adequacy of pension systems, you recognize that there is a challenge that we're going to have and a challenge that we're currently having. So how is it that we can look on our pension system, ensure that one, the adequacy of it, the sustainability of it, and how it is that we can strengthen the current framework so that persons are not going to experience old age poverty? And I always say it, that pensions is not one of those sexy things, meaning that persons will say, yes, they're going to go and invest, they're going to go and invest, buy stocks, or they're going to go and buy a car or a house. But retirement planning is usually far away in terms of them saying, let me see what I can do and prepare for as it relates to when I hit age 60 or I stop actively working. So it is a critical area for the economy in and of itself. And it is not just unique to Jamaica, but it is across the Caribbean and indeed Latin America.
Mm-hmm. So a lot is going on in this industry. We've been hearing about pension funds as well. What has the Pension Industry Association proposed re-coverage?
All right, so the Pension Industry Association of Jamaica, led by our president, Tanya, would have been advocating aggressively as it relates to auto enrollment. And that is a policy now set up to further strengthen the capacity, the resilience of the pension system. We have 3 pillars in Jamaica. One, the first pillar is your national insurance scheme, and the auto enrollment now it seeks to strengthen the second pillar, which is private pension plans and persons participating in the private pension plans. So you want to increase the pension coverage rate. Why? The question would be. Now, over a decade, probably 16, 17 years ago, you would have had pension reforms put in place. And those pension reforms, again, an element of the policy now to strengthen the system. But even with that and the reforms, what would have happened and where we are today is that we have a coverage of approximately 12%. That means that a lot of persons have not focused on retirement planning, are not a part of an approved pension arrangement. And it means that there's going to be a dependency on other elements, whether it is the government or other social safety nets that we have in place. And that is going to not only weaken our economy, but it can also create a space where persons are burdened, whether it is the children, they're burdened by the fact that they have to take care of their parents who may not have effectively planned for retirement. So it is a pension ecosystem. It has multifacets. And what we want to do at the end of the day, whether it is in the private sector or public sector, is have a multi-pronged approach in terms of how it is that we can create resilience, how is it that we can educate, and how it is that we can expand pension coverage.
Well, I feel like most companies don't offer pensions anymore. Pension used to be a standard. Now, probably only government workers still earn pension now.
And one of the things it would be in terms of even possibly the costs to the employer in terms of setting up a pension arrangement. And when you have whether it is like the auto enrollment, that burden is not so much on the employer, but it is more so encouraging, motivating persons to enroll in a pension arrangement. And when a cost is prohibitive to an employer, you will see that they're not motivated to say, okay, let me go and set up something for my employees. So again, while you have one element, which is the auto enrollment, which seeks to strengthen that particular framework, which is the second pillar, you still have to, and it is important, I need to pause here, that you can have different policies put in place. But if you're not educating, and financial literacy is very important, if you're not educating persons about the importance of retirement planning, what is going to obtain is that you're going to have the dependency on many, your family members will have to chip in, whether it is nursing home costs, medical costs, health costs. So it is important, not just when you're in the working stages of your life, you say, yes, let me think about retirement planning, but it needs to be from your hit primary, high school, that persons are learning about the importance of financial planning, the implications of it, what it is that they can do, because that is how you establish healthy financial habits. So it's not just when you enter the work world that you're establishing the healthy financial habits, but from onset, when you're in school, you're learning about the importance of these things, because what we need in Jamaica and indeed across the wider Caribbean is a shift in terms of how persons think about retirement planning and the importance of it.
It's a tricky one, because on the one hand, yes, it's important. I think most people acknowledge that it is important. You aspire to have something put away for retirement, but the majority of Jamaicans living hand to mouth, can barely cover today's expenses, much less find extra to put away for 20, 30, 40 years from now.
And that is the reality. It is the reality. And one of the things that I say, that if you are struggling hand to mouth now, can you imagine then? And when you think about that reality, you know that you are going to be in a space where you're not going to be adequately able to provide, whether it is for medication, paying your basic bills, your healthcare costs. So yes, you're living hand to mouth, but if you're struggling now, can you imagine then? The first rule of retirement planning is to never run out of money. And the second rule is that you must not forget the first rule. And yes, it's hand to mouth now, but it's better you have something more than nothing at all.
How easy is it to set up a pension plan on your own for yourself? Since you did mention, I think you said only 14% of Jamaicans have a
Well, if
retirement plan
on
or
a
a
private
pension
pension
fund.
arrangement system, approximately 12% in terms of pension coverage.
12%.
Yes,
12%.
roughly,
So the
yes.
vast majority are uncovered. How easy is it for those people to set it up for themselves?
It's very easy. It is just walking through through the doors of a financial institution. You would have whether it is the attendant document, to know your customer documentation, and you would establish whether or not you are eligible in terms of being able to join an approved retirement scheme. And outside of that, you'd also have, and when you're talking about building a retirement portfolio, you would want to also look on the numbers. What are you working towards as it relates to your goals? But it is very easy. And the thing about it, as I would have said, persons are not excited about retirement planning. But the reality of it is that we are heading to a crisis as it relates to persons not being covered, not being able to adequately provide for themselves when they stop actively working. And that is in and of itself a crisis.
Yeah, a lot of people just say retirement. What's that? I just work till I dead. That's
It's not one of those things that you get excited about and say, yes, let me. No, it isn't. And that is a stark reality. And I would have had personal experiences with relatives who would not have actively planned for retirement. And it is dependent on the family members now to kind of put together, whether it is to put that individual in a nursing home, whether it is to cover their medical expenses. And you don't want to be in that position. So how is it that we can, whether it is from a policy framework, you have things like the auto enrollment, or from a financial literacy space, how is it that we are refining, distilling the information so persons understand the importance? And one of the things that we have in terms of understanding or better understanding the numbers would have been even JMB building out our Hello Future website. And it is catering again to the different modalities of learning. Individuals, whether it is they want to look on a video, or whether it is they want to manipulate the calculator that is on that particular website, they're able to see, based on how much it is that I have, my salary, manipulate the numbers, what is the call to action, what is that gap. So it gives you more value added information that is important in terms of, one, establishing your retirement goal and working towards achieving that.
I have some questions from the audience. Sean wants to know, Sean, she got jokes. Why is NIS not adequate enough? Why do I need another pension plan?
So NIS is the first pillar, and it would not be adequate enough because it would not reach one of the benchmarks that we have, is that you want to replace at least 75 to 80% of your final salary. And the NIS would not be sufficient in terms of achieving that particular number.
Yeah, Sean, do you see how much they pay out in NIS? That can't mind nobody. Have you seen those numbers?
And the NIS is very important, So outside of providing a pension, there are other benefits that it provides. And in your retirement portfolio, you have that as a first element, but you need to also think about the second and the third element of the pillars.
What are the other pillars, second and third?
So the second one is the private pension arrangements, whether or not you are part of an approved superannuation fund that your employer would have established, or an approved retirement scheme. Most financial institutions, they have an approved retirement scheme. And the third now is your voluntary savings and investments.
Roswell says, well, Roswell has a concern. Roswell says, I don't like pension plans. Many reps just sell this product, and most of those who buy into pension not knowing how pension plan works under the fund manager.
So understood, but it is not selling a product. It is not selling a product, and it should not be selling a product.
What pension fund isn't a product?
No, what should be present is not just a product. What should be present is in terms of a retirement portfolio and how that works. Meaning that you have your retirement portfolio will have many different elements as stated before. One, you have your NIS. Two, you're a part of an approved pension arrangement. But it is when you just say it is a product, you are losing the essence in terms of the importance of it. Because the questions that you should be asking your financial advisor: one, based on my current rate of contribution, what is my replacement rate going to look like? And that should motivate you to say, based on the current rate that I'm contributing, based on the information provided by my financial advisor, I am at 30 or 40%. Have I maxed out? The next question now is, have I maxed out in terms of the rate of contribution? When I max out that rate of contribution, which is 20%, where's that number carrying me to as it relates to my replacement rate? Because what your goal, is that, and you have to always have in front of you, what is your goal? That goal is the replacement rate. So it is not just here, this is the product. What is a fundamental thing that you're working towards for yourself as it relates to a replacement rate? And when you ask your financial advisor those questions, those pointed questions, then you will be able to motivate yourself to not just say, this is not only a product, but this is me securing my financial future by virtue of what it is that I have saved and invested in, and how is it I may be able to potentially close the gap by possibly other investments that may be out there.
Captain Parky says, one of my coworkers say, God soon comes, so no need for a pension. And then Shell says,
I am. So until
next
then,
part of that, Jamaicans mentality, the Lord will provide. I have another question though. Let me find back the question. Hold on. Lanestra wants to know, what do you think about investing in stocks instead of a pension fund for retirement?
So stocks is one element of it, and it can be a part of your portfolio, but then again, that is maximizing now the third pillar, and it is based on your risk appetite and what it is that you want as it relates to possible dividend income from the particular stocks that you have in your portfolio. Again, it is always guided by the conversations that you're having with your financial advisor and what it is that you need in terms of building out your portfolio.
Next question. Boy, it's a hot topic tonight. Everybody interested in the pensions. Kamoy wants to know, can the diaspora with a JMD account invest in a retirement scheme in Jamaica?
No, you have to be ordinarily resident to invest in our approved retirement scheme. However, there are other solutions that JMB would have as it relates to our portfolio solution, which is JMB Retirement Supplement, and again, other investments that you can use to build out your retirement portfolio.
So you can't have your pension in the US and then put some money in Jamaica for pension as well, double dip.
No.
Question from Instagram. Can your pension be moved from one entity to the next? And is that only in Jamaica?
Yes, it can be moved from one entity to the next as it relates to portability. If you are a part of an approved retirement scheme, there is some institutions will possibly have a fee, but there is a portability where persons can transfer from one entity to the next if you're a part of an approved retirement scheme. And also, if you are a part of an approved superannuation fund, there is usually the clause in your trust document that allows for you to transfer to another pension arrangement if you have terminated employment from a particular company.
And let me add as well, when we were asking about the benefit of investing in a pension plan as opposed to investing in stocks for pension, don't forget, guys, you get a tax benefit when you invest in a pension plan. Tell them about the tax benefit, Camille.
So with other investments, what you're doing, you're investing it with after-tax dollars for somebody who has a pay slip. So you're carrying the monies whether to any financial institution after-tax dollars. However, when you are a part of an approved pension arrangement, the contributions are taken out before taxes applied. So you get that tax savings. In addition, also, your monies, you're able to grow faster. Why? The monies or any investments held by an approved pension arrangement would not be taxed. So your monies is able to grow faster, and that is what you want. You want your money to be working for you outpacing inflation so that the pot of funds when you stop actively working is adequate.
It's not taxed now, but it is taxed later on when you
Yes, it is.
pull
Yes, it
from those
is.
pension
Yes.
plans.
So you get 25% tax-free lump sum, and then yes, the income would be taxed, but you can apply for varied exemptions, which will give you some latitude as it relates to your income.
I'll take this final question before we bring in David. This one is also from Instagram. Momo wants to know, does the pension have to be deducted from your salary, like from your workplace on a standing order, or can the individual send the money over to the pension account when they can?
So we recommend that usually it's deducted from your salary. However, you can also send it over, but we recommend that it's deducted from your salary. But yes, you have the flexibility in terms of just sending over monies to your pension, your retirement account.
I know I said last one, but last one now from Shells. What happens to your pension contributions when you leave a company?
All right, so there are two things that can happen. So if you're a part of an approved superannuation fund, what may happen is that when you're terminated, the rules may state that you can get a refund of your pension contributions, whether it is your basic or your voluntary contributions. You may have conditional vesting, whereby that conditional vesting, if you take a portion of it, you forfeit some element of the benefit. But again, that is always dependent on the structure. So the question is broad. However, I always recommend that person speak with their human resource personnel about, and you're supposed to also have a members booklet. You can also request the trust deed and rules for any pension arrangement that you're a part of, so you can understand the intricacies of how it operates and what are the attendant benefits. If you're a part of an approved retirement scheme, you're not going to get a refund of your contributions. What would obtain is that usually, and different institutions have different retirement, early retirement age and normal retirement age. And when that is triggered, you will get a benefit at that point in time. But for an approved retirement scheme, you're not going to get the contribution refund in your hand if you're to leave a company.
So there are a couple more questions in the chat. If possible, I'm going to ask you to try to respond to those people in the chat. Can you just type your comment there? Because I want to bring in David right now. Welcome back, David.
Thanks, Kalila.
All right. So you had an article. I'm not even sure if it's your article this week in the Observer about TJH and what's going on with the new leg of the highway. The fares are finally coming. The deal has been negotiated. The contract is signed, and we're looking at sometime in August to start paying that fare on the new leg. What's the latest that you can tell us? What update do you have?
So the story last week, Wednesday, was my editor. I contributed a little bit, but yeah, here with that story, and basically the almost 1 year of free toll is sadly coming to an end. So for those who don't know what I'm talking about, Phase 1C was completed by NROC, which is the largest shareholder in TransJamaica Highway last year. However, there's a process that had to occur before TransJamaica could actually get the right to operate that highway, right? So basically, 20 kilometers of road, TransJamaica excused the right of first refusal, and now they are paying $20.3 million US to get the right to operate that highway to 2036. And they said they should bring in about $9 million worth of revenue into next year based on their projections. Based on a conservative 42% gross profit before tax margin and a 25% tax rate, that's about $2.84 million in additional net profit each year to the bottom line. So within probably a decade, they effectively earn back all of the amount they'd have spent to acquire the right to operate that leg. But there's
a lot of money. Okay, get to your but before I interject. But what now?
I was going to point out that the big but right there is there's a potential limit upside factor, upside formula that is there, but I haven't got any additional details there. So TJ might potentially pay a little bit more to, I believe it's NROC, based on the performance of the highway at some point in time. I've got some additional context there, but it's still a good thing for TJH because for them, they're the one of the few providers of services in Jamaica that can consistently raise their prices and people don't have a reason to switch to another alternative. So JPS, for example, NWC, the most can do with JPS is go solar, but there are limits to that. With Trans-Jamaican Highway, you're going to go to the old road to get to Portmore, or you're going to just fight traffic and just reach home in probably a shorter period of time on the highway. And this is just the reality that make Trans-Jamaica Highway a pretty interesting stock and company. The traffic on the highways is increasing every year. Portmore, so they currently operate Portmore, Vineyards, that's close to Old Harbor, Maypen, and the Spanish Town Toll Plaza. And they generated about $75 million US last year in revenue from those particular facilities. So that translates to about 11, 12 billion J worth of revenue, and they did about 23 million USD worth of net profit, which is just a little bit over 3.7 billion plus. This is just me the rough math in the back of my head, but it's a pretty interesting development. Last year they said they extended their first refusal, highway open, and we just heard infinitum of these extensions: extension to December, extension to March, extension to July. Continued freeness, and that freeness is over. So, too bad on you, Kalila. You have to pay some toll now. Kalila.
Hi, David. Kalila will be back with you shortly.
Understood. So I'm just going to, so if anybody has any questions, you can just send me chat in the meantime. What I'll just continue on Trans-Jamaican Highway. So right now they're developing different interchange lanes to act as what we would call a feeder to their business, while also addressing the fact that some of the older routes that persons use to get to their homes are just saturated with traffic. So the first major interchange lane is to Freetown, and that's about $330 million J that they're spending to actually develop that interchange lane, just a little over $2 million US. And even with respect to the concession that they're paying for right now with GOJ, they're using their own internal funds. So it's not like TJH is taking out new debt to actually acquire this new leg or develop this new interchange lane. So this is just showing that Trans-Jamaican Highway is a strong business in terms of generating cash, alongside the fact that the most that they have to do is maintain upkeep of the roadways for the highway. Otherwise, there's not much, downside to their business model. And the thing is, if there are other developments within the region that they can actually bid on and operate, they would have already had that Jamaican experience going for at least 2 decades plus as a strong talking point in negotiations. So at AGM, because I went to it, by the way, Ivan Anderson, who is the managing director, said that Trans-Jamaican Highway is now looking to do semi-annual dividends. So from the last, call it what, about 4 years post listing, Trans-Jamaican Highway, sorry, 3 years post 2020, 21, 22, 23, 4 years post listing, Trans-Jamaican Highway, has been paying an annual dividend every November. Now they're planning to do a semi-annual structure, so they did their first declaration or record date in March and paid in April, and they're likely going to do the next payment in November as usual again. And the current dividend payments for Trans-Jamaican Highway shareholders is still among one of the highest in the markets. And even for IPO holders, they're just sitting on some extremely great, yearly income. So even with the 18-cent dividend paid last November relative to $1.41, that's just a little over 10% in a dividend yield. And if TransJamaica Highway keeps up a similar payment come November relative to dividend paid back in April, you're going to be talking about easily probably 16 near 20% dividend yield for those who bought in 2020 and continue to accumulate even up to late March 2023. Okay, we're trading relatively below the IPO price. And Natoya, I do not see TransAmerican Highway going back to $2 that easily. It will be a very hard press. That's one of the most liquid stocks on the JSE, and the perspective of persons can go in $1 million into that stock and it have easy access to liquidate it or sell it if they need to get cash easily. So if you look at that stock, you're probably seeing like 5 million, 6 million, or even 2 million shares traded every day. And even at $3, it's $60 million trading. So that $2 timeline, is far gone, and we're in a relatively depressed environment as it relates to the perspective of interest rates with the interest rates impacting the stock market. So let us say when rates do come down, heading potentially in 2025, you might just see TransAmerican Highway go even higher as persons look to secure asset classes in equities and other higher risk or yielding assets that will generate better adjusted returns. So in the case of TransJamaica, you're probably talking about a $4 stock by next year, because when the dividend was announced and getting closer to the actual record date back in March 2024 this year, you went to say 370 380. So $2, that is a 2023 dream. We have to live in the present of a 2024. Welcome back, Kalila.
Oh, thanks. Oh, that was a first for me. Complete internet lock off just now, but luckily it came back. I was trying to log in on my phone, and right when I got through it, it came back on the computer. So thanks for holding over, David. I missed most of what you said, but I can I can surmise what you probably said, having to do with dividends and TJH already being a great dividend paying company, and all the implications of this new leg of the highway. So we have some comments here. I think I heard you taking some other comments. O'Shane says toll road blocks progress, considering that the government cannot upgrade competing roads.
Well, I didn't get the privilege of looking at the documents for inspection back in TJH's 2020 IPO, because if we were able to actually review the amended concession agreement, there probably were some adjustment to that right, to limit the government's ability to do some of those things. Because remember, the government did expand Mandela Highway, and people are still taking Portmore Toll Highway, and they actually put it in their prospectus that, because they're expanding the Mandela Highway, they got more traffic during that period. And even after the normalization of traffic after the expansion, they still had their highest record in terms of traffic or volume on the highway last year. More than 24 million vehicles passed their toll booths last year. And this is before Mandeville and Maypen to Williamshill, Manchester, which is the new phase of the highway. So,
right, which is like 5 minutes away from Mandeville. Sean wants to know, did they mention anything about damages to structure at the AGM?
I really and truly missed that part. There were 3 AGMs that day. I went to all 3, one virtual, one in person, then TJH last. So I didn't get to catch the initial phase. I'm not sure if anybody actually asked that question. But if there was any serious structural damage, they'd have been likely required to make some level of disclosure. And I'm sure persons would have shared pictures if there were any issues with the highway or just the toll booths. So probably need to just ask Ivan Anderson at the earnings call or something else in terms of what happened post burial.
So Garvin is responding. They said that there was no damage from burial. He said the question was asked. So Garvin was attending that briefing. Moncherie wants to know, Why is it that the TJH USD stock does not perform as well as the Jamaican dollar stock?
So two sides to that coin, right? So if you actually equate the TJH US dollar stock price to the Jamaican dollar stock price, it's effectively trading at the same price. What do I mean by that? So let's break it down, keep it simple, right? So 157 is the current FX rate. If you multiply that by 2, or just say 2 cents, it's about $3.10. That's a similar price that you're seeing the US dollar stock trading at. So you have this case of a mirroring situation whereby persons who are buying TJH, are probably trading it on the US dollar side at a similar price relative to the Jamaican dollar side. So on one hand, the US dollar stock itself has a lower growth than Jamaican dollar side, but at the end of the day, you're still getting the same Jamaican dollar dividends in turn. So you also have to account for the fact that other persons probably don't know about the US dollar market. And for some brokers, it's a little bit more juggling of hoops to get that US dollar cash to trade in the market. So those are probably some of the factors that are impacting the stock itself on the US dollar side.
All right. Thanks, David. Anything else that you want to mention re TJH?
Nothing else until my mind. We're TransJamaica Highway. Just remember that the next week is end of month. That is for Wednesday, and August 1, August 6th are public holidays, so there will be no trading on the Jamaica Stock Exchange on those days. Just a reminder, so people don't wake up saying where the stock market, why isn't it open? But stay safe. Hope everybody who was probably impacted by burial is recovering in some capacity, and just stay safe. Still a very active.
I still don't have light in Mandeville.
And hurricanes is in until November 30, so I have to wish everybody all the best because burial barely grazed the south coast and there's so much damage.
I see one more question coming in, and it comes from Robert, who wants to know, does TJH have to pay the full 20 million US concession for Williams Field at once or over several years?
Well, that part hasn't been disclosed, and likely will come out in the third quarter report or disclosure, as probably seen by the cash flow statement. But at best guess, it's likely they're going to pay the full amount upfront. And one reminder is that they say that they're going to segregate the Phase 1C asset into a separate company. So a separate subsidiary of TJH actually operating Phase 1C, and it's likely that they're probably going to pay all that amount upfront. But let us see what the Q3 report, which comes up by November 14, says. If you see a cash outflow for the concession asset or a particular variance, you can probably determine if the full amount was paid as a cash outflow for the right of that new leg of the highway.
All right. Thanks again, David. Appreciate it. We're going to take our final break and come back with your comments.
This segment of Taking Stock, The Analysts, was brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart.
I'm Kalila Reynolds, the Money General, and I'm on a mission to help you get better with money. Join me inside the Money Mission community where I'll teach you how to manage money, make more money, and annihilate bad debt. Click the link in the description to sign up for your basic or premium membership. Let's get this money. Welcome back. Let me see what comments you guys have here. You've been commenting on a lot. So for our poll question, would you invest in sports? Javier says, I would say I'm torn between A and B, as it would be a great opportunity to diversify my portfolio, but I'm unfamiliar with investment options as it relates to sports. Yep, I think that's the boat that a lot of people probably find themselves in. You'd love to do it, but how? Javon says your retirement fund should consist of 3 tiers: government contribution, NIS, personal pension plan, and your government contribution, NIS. That's one thing. 2 is personal pension plan, and 3 would be your investments, such as your stocks, your bonds, your etc. Christopher John says we should be able to further strengthen the pension arrangements by removing the vesting period to boost the amount that each employee accumulates going into retirement. Juan says, hey, I know I'm probably off topic. I'm new to investing. What would you suggest for me to start? Because I'm at step 1. So step 1 is opening your investment account, Juan. Step 2 is figuring out your investment profile, your investment personality. So how much risk are you willing to take? What are your investment goals for the short term, for the long term? Why are you investing? And those things will help you determine what types of investments you should be making. Also your age. How soon do you need back the money? So it's not a one size fits all type of solution. Well, you can go to investingforbeginnersja.com to get a little bit of guidance or a lot of guidance on how best to get started. Sean says, TJH is a retirement stock for me, not selling till 2036. And then he's also saying TJH to $15 by 2028. Let's make it a reality. Woohoo, Sean. Let's go. Garvin says it was a teachable moment, though. This is why investor education is so important. Some people believe that publicly listed means that the company is a government entity. So public company is not the same as publicly listed company. It's not a publicly owned company. Two completely different things. All right, let me see who else we got here. What else we have? Fabi says, invest in football if you want to invest in sports. Lanesra reminding people to like and share the video. Fabi saying that football is the #1 sport in the world. It absolutely is. Robert saying, JPS, let's get this light. Absolutely, yep. So tomorrow will be 4 weeks for us without light. And I know that they're out there working. I'm not blaming anybody. I have captured the kids and we're camping out in Kingston. Poor Richie, we kind of abandoned him there in Mandeville. So he's still without power while the kids and I are enjoying electricity in Kingston. We're fortunate to even have that option, but we kind of tough it out for 3 weeks. And now here we are. Couldn't take it no more. Especially with the work that I have to do. I work from home, so I need electricity, I need internet, I need these amenities. And then the kids home from school. No, it's summertime. They're not in school during the day. Oh, no electricity, no nothing, no devices, no TV. Lanesra says you may get a light bill before you get back your light. I already got it. Got my light bill, I think yesterday they sent it in the email, and they sent a notice saying that this may be an estimated bill. So, yep, they make sure that they pay. Orville says, get rid of the monopoly system with JPS. And if you want to know how we've been faring, so it's not, apart from the work aspect and not being able to work since I work from home, I had to go to a co-working space. It's actually not that bad. So we kind of reset our circadian rhythm. We go to bed early when the sun goes down. We're typically sleeping by 8 o'clock. Wake up with the sun again at 5. Open up all the curtains all the way so we get the sunlight in the house and you can see. But you can't use any devices, which could be a good thing. Forces the kids to use their imagination, to play more. For me, I was doing a lot of reading. What else? We have a gas stove, so we got by with that. The fridge doesn't work, so ice has been a hot commodity. Making sure that you get ice. There was early after burial, those few days, first couple of weeks, ice sell out everywhere you're going. As soon as you walk in, they're like, no ice, because we got a big cooler to put some of the perishables in. But that's why you stock up. That's why they say to stock up on non-perishable food items. The bully beef and the tin sausage and the mackerel and the tuna, the sardines, stuff that doesn't require refrigeration. And this is a time that we have been forced to use them. But yeah, I kind of had enough. And we moved over to Kingston. I would have camped out in this studio if I needed to, because life without electricity in 2024 for a whole month, it ain't it. Trust me. Tug it out as long as we could, and now here we are. I'm sure everybody else understands. Sean says, invest in solar, get off the grid. Lanesra says, JPS says 95% of customers have gotten light back. Seem you're in the 5%. Apparently so. Half of my street has light and the other half doesn't, because there's a light pole down on the street. So everybody before the light pole has light, and everybody after the light pole doesn't have light. And we're after the light pole, so we're among the unlucky bunch. When it come back, hopefully very soon. We haven't seen them. Every day I ask Richie, have you seen JPS nearby? He's like, nope. So hopefully we can move back home very, very soon. Right now we're camping out. Haven't gotten a good night's rest because I'm sharing a bed with the kids, but you know, you do what you must. You get kicked up at night, you make it work. Orville says, who wants to do a poll that 95% of people don't have power? Don't or do? Because I'm sure the majority of people do. Tiana says, I'm a student without proof of income. Can I open an investment account? Where are you getting the money from? Proof of income is simply saying where you get the money from. So if it's not from a salary, who's giving you this money to invest? Is it from your personal savings? Then you can possibly present your bank statement to show that you have money saved up. Is it from your parents? Where are you getting money from to invest? That's the proof of income that's required. It doesn't necessarily have to be a job. Is it a remittance? You know, whatever you can do to show that proof of income. All right, so that's it for our show today. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks to our analyst panel, David and Camille. Also to our guest earlier in the program, Tanya Lee. You guys enjoy the Olympics when it starts on Friday. Of course, we'll be rooting for Team Jamaica and have fun. Enjoy your electricity. You really understand what it is like, you know, how valuable it is in today's modern world. Of course, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the newsletter at KalilaReynolds.com/newsletter, and on my legitimate platforms at Kalila Ray, KalilaHrey. Any other thing is fake or a scam. Remember, I don't DM people. I do not recommend stocks. I don't invest on behalf of people. I don't do any of that stuff. And if anybody approaches you claiming to be me, just know that is not me. That's a scammer. Report those pages. Now, tell a friend to watch Taking Stock. Share this video with them because investing is the new sexy. So let's make it cool to talk about money. I'm Kalila Reynolds. See you next week.
Let's get this money.